This session is called Be Bold for 5. We have a range of speakers and all films who will be speaking for 5 minutes. So, with no further ado, I would like to invite the very, very wonderful Owen Allen to talk about a language of body for everyone.
Just curious, please. The way that we move through space is really interesting to me, and I am conscious of the fact that we are moving and dancing in our way all day long. But we really are all moving and dancing all day long.
I've spent the last 10 years in community creative processes, including dance. Now formulated an experiment that I call the rEvolve project. The experiment is about cognition and conversation and community. You might get that there is an integration of those things, and certainly there is something about community that is a function of conversation, and conversation happens in what we call language. Now, if you're trying to follow my script and that, it's not going to work. Now, language is at the heart of human society. It gives us the ability to look at the events of our lives, retell those events, provide a story to explain the events, and through story reflect on the event in a purposeful learning process so that we can manipulate similar future events with greater success. And language itself can be manipulated purposefully to create imaginative stories of the future. And those stories can untie us from the story of the past and create a larger virtual space to play in, from within which novel real life is formed. We can often overlook that language and cognition is embodied. The embodiment of language raises a few questions about our cultural future and the role of dance. Can we become more resilient and versatile around our deep stories by working at the embodied rather than the cognitive level? Can we raise the embodied aspect of language to the level of commonality and sophistication currently reserved for written and oral languages? And can we create new storylines from the non-imaginary real world, or for the non-imaginary real world? Perhaps even create a new human being that is from the get-go less conditioned to a cultural past. Certainly create a virtual space or a cultural clearing for a language of bodies as an experiment towards developing a sophisticated and common language of the physical. How would we conduct such an experiment? I think we can start with a couple of premises. One, that dance is a conversation in body, albeit with a yet unrealised potential for linguistic development. And that anyone can dance, and anyone can dance with anyone. For a sophisticated language to develop, an organic community process is required that leads to the identification of basic construction units. In oral language they are called phonemes, in written language graphemes, ABC, etc. In order to work towards a set of movemes, the experiment is a community-level exploration of the deconstruction of movement. It is the act of the appearance of movement as a palette from which tens of thousands of acts of creative design can be constructed. The rEvolve project is a facilitated format that starts with the dancers developing an awareness of the most simple movements and how those movements might be in space, and then playing with any combination of simple movements as an exercise in collaborative learning. The work can then move into creative development, performative design, and performance. In the experiment so far, I see that participants can find themselves just being a little amazed in performance. To realise the vision of a widespread community uptake of the experiment, communities must own the experiment as dance clubs of performative aspiration. I think of this as something like the merging of the sport club concept set for training and performance and strategy, and the art studio for creativity and observer engagement. Ultimately, my vision is that tens of thousands of clubs could be experimenting with tens of thousands of acts of creative biomechanics, and that sets up a whole new ballgame. I'll be travelling extensively from May to August this year, bookended with workshops at the Global Transformations Conference in Hollywood and the World Scientific Conference on Movement and Cognition in Tel Aviv. So if any of you have any sort of dance contact out there in the USA, London, Berlin, Israel or Singapore, I would like you to introduce me. I'm also keen to workshop with any groups across cultural abilities here in Australia, so invite me. We'll work it out. Please come after the session, let me know, or drop me a line here.